Are you more of a blue text or green text type of person? Most people you ask nowadays will say blue text, but few know about the inspirational journey that it took for the blue text to reign supreme over the green text. This is the story of Steve Jobs and the tremendous growth of Apple. Apple's journey begins on December 12th, 1980, when Steve Jobs makes the decision to take the company public and it is listed on the stock market. During that time, Apple was able to sell 4.6 million shares at $22 apiece, making the company valuation a whopping $101.2 million. The reason behind this high number was the fact that for the previous 4 years, Apple's revenue increased by 533% every year due to the release of Apple I, Apple II, and Apple III, computers designed by a friend of Steve Jobs named Steve Wozniak. The rapid growth that Apple experienced, however, was short-sighted. In 1985, Steve Jobs was forced out of the company by John Sculley, who was previously the Pepsi CEO. The reason behind this was the fact that Macintosh, a Jobs invention, was a financial failure. Quite intriguingly, Jobs was the one who pursued the aid of Sculley, and at one point is quoted telling him, "Do you want to sell sugar water for the rest of your life or come with me and change the world?" Rapid changes in Apple came after the departure of Steve Jobs on top of a slight dip in the stock price of Apple. One of the most prominent changes was the shift from having low-cost, low-profit margins on their computers to high-cost, high-profit margins. At first, sales didn't change because the revolutionary technology of Apple was appealing to people. However, this was not sustainable, and over time the PC began to dominate over Apple computers. PCs offered the same thing at lower prices, and by the end of 1989, there was a whopping 20% drop in Apple's share on top of rapidly declining sales. Sculley's response to this problem was to introduce several new lines of products that were low cost and low profit, aligning with Steve Jobs' original vision to sell high volumes of these types of products. Among these products were digital cameras, portable CDs, speakers, and 3 different types of computers. While this was seemingly a good response, it became apparent that the corpus of products was confusing to customers who were wondering what the difference between them really was. Rapid shifts in the leadership of Apple then took place. Sculley was replaced by Michael Spindler, and Spindler was replaced by Gil Amelio in 1996. During this time, Apple's sales fell, as well as their share price, and many were speculating that it would be the end of the company. A shocking decision was made in 1997, however, when Apple bought a computer company called Next. This company was owned by Steve Jobs, and this was the very reason why Apple bought it. Apple named Jobs the interim CEO as a last-ditch effort to save the company. They were 90 days from bankruptcy when Jobs came back with some help from Microsoft's Bill Gates, who gave Apple a $150 million investment. This was a shocking investment due to the existing rivalry between the two companies, and the turnaround that came with it was immense. The release of the iMac in 1998 grew the share price month after month until reaching a peak in the early 2000s. Year after year, Apple continued to release promising products. The iPod was released in 2001, and iTunes Music Store was launched in 2003. In early 2006, the first iMac was launched and the MacBook Pro models were introduced. On Friday the 13th of January 2006, the market value of Apple surpassed Dell for the first time. This was funny because Dell's CEO in 1997 stated that Jobs should shut down and return the money to his shareholders. Jobs wrote an email to his team after defeating Dell, mocking the CEO and saying that he, quote, wasn't good at predicting the future. Apple only rose bigger and bigger after this, and in 2007 it launched its first iPhone, a revolutionary product. It remains the most important source of income for Apple. Investors started seeing Apple as a revolutionary company, and their stock price increased largely. In 2010, for example, 300,000 iPads were sold on the first day of its launch. While there have been hiccups in years following this, Apple has changed its product over time to better appeal to consumers. They made the 5S screen bigger because they knew that there was a desire for larger displays at the time. When they launched the iPhone X, their share price went up even more. And on August 2nd, 2018, they crossed the $1 trillion mark shortly after the launch of the iPhone X. The ubiquity of iPhones nowadays is unquestionable, and the journey of Apple's stock share and market value exemplifies a story of a man who had a revolutionary vision for the world. So, the next time someone says that blue texts are better than green texts, remember the outstanding series of events that needed to happen in order for this to be a reality.